Okay, and welcome. We're going to go over some Walkera V400D02 upgrades, repairs, mods, maintenance, and all the cool stuff that you need to know if you like this helicopter. So we're going to start with some stuff on the stock motors. Okay, so our first mod on the D400 is going to be on the stock carbon brushed motor. Now, if you've got this helicopter and you haven't made any modifications to it yet, the first thing you got to worry about is the motor. Now, these stock motors are fairly well made. However, they burn out pretty quick, and their biggest enemy is heat. So as you see here, we have a modification on this one with some heat sinks. Now, I want to show you how to do that. It's very simple. Now, no one actually makes a heat sink for this helicopter. What we have here is an E-Sky heat sink. If you just try to stretch it over the motor, now here's a stock motor. Alright, if you just try to stretch it on top of there, it's going to bend. So, the easiest way to fix that is to take the label off. This peels right off. And there's a small, feeble heat shrink metal plate on here. That slides right off. And there you go. You got a brand new Walkera motor with an E-Sky heat sink. In fact, on this one here, you'll see I've got two. I found a smaller heat sink for a, I believe this was for a Walkera 180D, and bingo. So this baby runs nice and cool. Now, in addition to that, you need to keep these tail motors cool. Now, the problem you've got with tail motors is no one makes anything for this. So you'll see a small heat sink on this tail motor, and I'll slide that off. I found, I believe this was a heat sink for a E-Flight SR, and what I did is I sliced it in half. Here's the other half over here, and I just slide that on top. And although it's very small, it really does make a difference. The motor life is extended quite a bit. Okay, so we're working on the Walkera V400D02 and some basic modifications and maintenance. Right here, I want to talk about the battery placement. Now, there's a couple of folks online talking about loading the battery in the back. That requires taking the struts off, and I'm not a big fan of that. This is a really long tail boom, and I think it needs the support. So until I find a better way to do that, we're still loading from the front. Okay, so when you buy this helicopter, they've got you loading the battery with the wires facing in the back, and it's a real pain in the neck. So what I've done is, I've got my RT. Now, a lot of these parts are from RTF Heli. They've got a very nice push-button switch. We've got here. All right. The Walkera ESC has this type of plug on it. And so what I've done is I've modified the switch, and now the switch accepts what I like to use Dean's connectors. So I've plugged it in the back on the ESC, and I wrapped it around the back of the helicopter. Got a little extension wire back here. Now this way I can put my battery in the front, plug in my Dean's connector, bingo, bango, boingo. Now, on top of that, the factory tells you to use these stupid black rubber bands that just don't work. So we just use a regular rubber band. Let me just get over here. Regular rubber band holds the wire in place, holds the battery in place, and you're a happy camper. Now, this factory battery is, I believe, 1200 milliamps, which is okay to get started. However, you're going to want to upgrade. We've got a couple of choices here. Now, 1300 milliamps and 1500 milliamps. The 1300 works just fine for stock motors, fairly good flight time. The 1500 milliamps is still good for the carbon brush motor, but also works well with the brushless motor upgrade. There's also an 1800 milliamp battery, we'll get to that later. That's not something you're going to want to use on this helicopter right now with the stock motor. So that's batteries. Now just a little tip here. The way I like to store the batteries, I like to leave a rubber band on each battery for this helicopter. And that's just a little side note. What I do is I fold the wires under the rubber band, and that's a ready to go charged battery. After I take it out of the helicopter and I'm done using it, I leave it like this. This way when I put it in my bag, I put it away, I'm at the field, I'm flying, I'm going crazy, I know that I used this battery and it needs to be charged. Okay. Another mod, it's very simple, also available from RTF Heli, is this fuse. It's an inline fast blow fuse. This one here happens to be one that I repaired, so it looks a little funky. But you can see in here, it's been in place. It's a plug and play item, and it's for the rear motor. And when I first thought about this, I thought, well, what's the big deal? Well, it turns out the day after I installed the first one on the first heli, I had a small crash, and sure enough, it saved a lot of damage because the fuse blew and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. So this is a good idea. They're relatively inexpensive, and I'd recommend that. You can see here, the installation is simple. And it's just a JST plug, and it goes right in line for the rear motor. Also, you'll notice, now this is not a mod that's required, however, as soon as you start working on this helicopter and you take these servos off to do any kind of repairs, crash damage, you're going to find that it's nearly impossible or difficult to get the wires back underneath these servos. So I routed them out like this, a couple of zip ties, makes it nice and neat and clean, and it looks very good, and I'm happy with that. Okay, we're back with the Walkera V400D02, and we want to talk about cameras and mounting and canopies. Now, we've got a couple of examples here of camera mounts. Now, first I want to show you these little cameras, and they're pretty popular these days. Now you see there's one right in the nose of the helicopter here. I went and bought the real expensive one, the name brand one. And then I went and bought this one here from RTF Heli, which was about half the price, and it's absolutely identical. So why spend more money? Anywho, we've got a standard Walkera canopy, and all we did was cut a slot in the front. Now this one's had some battle damage, so it's got some tape on it, but that has nothing to do with the mounting. So what we did was cut a small slot, and the camera slides right in the hole. Now what we've got inside, let me pull this off for you, because if you just cut a hole and stick the camera in, it'll flop around a bit. What we've got in here is some just good old-fashioned foam. Alright, you stick the camera in, stick a little foam in there, and that'll stabilize it. You'll see that if you don't, without the foam, it's just kind of flopping around. I tried making it a tight fit. When you make it a tight fit, it points down. So we make it a sloppy fit, stick the foam in there, and it's nice and tight. I've taken a lot of videos and it works well. Okay, now we've got something else really neat that you can do with these cameras. Let me put this aside. Now when you buy this camera, like this one here, actually this one came in today from RTF Heli, rtfheli.com, and you get an entire kit, including this mount here, you'll see. Now, this mount is pretty universal, and I'll show you what I did with it. If you like to videotape yourself, I put it on a hat bill, and you clip that on. There you go, instant camera. Only problem with this is it's a little trouble. You got to make sure you aim it right. You got to try it out at home a few times, but excellent video quality, and it's very good for helicopter flying, and that might be a good idea for you. All right, now more camera stuff. If you got a few bucks and you don't mind, these video camera glasses are pretty good. Now the lenses, you get a couple of sets of lenses in these. Mine are broken, so I just put them on as is. And by the way, they all take the same memory card, and so you can interact with the same memory cards. They all take the same memory cards. Now on this helicopter, we've got a second camera on the bottom. This is one of these keychain cameras. I've got some Velcro under there and then a strap to hold it down. Now I tried it with the Velcro alone. It didn't fall off, but the video, it vibrated so bad that you couldn't watch the video. Now the only thing with this guy here is when you mount it, it's actually upside down, which works out okay because most of the Windows software you can rotate it and turn it right side up and all is happy in the universe. So let's just talk about, while we're talking about canopies and mountings, let's talk about some battle damage that these helicopters have often. And that's these little pins here for the canopy mounts. Okay, these are pretty good. They're easy to change. They thread in and out, but they break and bend very, very easily. Now, I want to show you a couple of these. Now, this is a good one. And in the frame here, in between the two halves, is a little threaded piece. These thread in. Okay. When you buy the kit, you get both pieces. You get 4 of these and 2 or 3 of these. And let me tell you something about these. I want to show everyone, if I can find it. I've got a whole bag full of these guys, and they're bent. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that against my skin here, how it's bent. Okay. First couple of times I got a few of these bent ones. I tried straightening them, and I'll tell you what exactly happens. Now this threads into this guy here while it's in the frame of the helicopter, and it's bent. You go to straighten it, and it snaps off, and then you got a problem. So my advice to you is don't try to straighten them. They break too easily. Once the metal has been stressed like this, it becomes brittle. You have what they call brittle fracture. So do yourself a favor, get a bag of these. Keep them handy because you're going to use quite a few of those. Now let's talk about other canopies. All right, now also from RTF Heli, got these very nicely painted fiberglass resin canopies. I'll tell you what, besides looking good, these are pretty tough. This one here has had 2 significant crashes and there's not a scratch on it. I also found that it tends to sturdy up the frame. It actually makes the helicopter a little bit more rigid, which is a good thing. One very important part of these canopies, though, when you buy them, make sure you get the rubber inserts that they recommend, because the standard factory insert, although it will fit, does not hold it very well. When you get these, you're going to have to ream the holes a little bit. Take your time, don't go oversized. And these are very nice. I believe they're about $24, $25, and it's a very nice addition. As you can see, they look very nice on the helicopter. And then, of course, you save your old one, and you make your modifications. Make your camera mounts and whatever else you need to do. All right. Okay.
All right, we got a back camera and a front camera, and we're running the V400 with standard blades. Little wind, not too bad. Here we go.